What's up, guys? It's time for our in-depth May 2022 Yu-Gi-Oh! Tier list, post-ban list. A lot of things got shaken up on the ban list, obviously. Miamu's gone, which is really sad. Aurora Dawn is gone. You know, we're going to miss him. Predaplant Verte Anaconda is gone. So pretty much every bad deck can't sit on 2 effect monsters and make DPE. Yatagarasu came back. Change of Heart came back. Needle Fiber's gone to 1. Shooting Riser Dragon, for whatever reason, has gone to 1. But we're gonna hash this up. We're gonna try to get a good idea of what's going on, as consulted by some of our local experts in the community, and let us know what you guys think. So first on this list, we got Prank Kids, and they're gonna be in the category known as IHOP Steak Tips / Tilapia. So this deck was completely murdered. It's probably going to be the baseline for like bottom of the barrel kind of deck after Konami completely murdered it. It's only going to the bottom because it was so recently murdered. Because this otherwise would have been a top contender right up here, you know. But with the ban list and Konami getting really heavy with it, we play tested this deck I mentioned in a previous video, and it's just not looking like there's some easy ways to make this deck good. So that's where it's going to be. Striker. We're gonna put this one in the great but bleh, so A tier. It can definitely catch some players off guard, but definitely not the best in the format. And once we get to putting these decks in their own categories, we're gonna kind of like bunch them up together. But I think A tier is a really fair place to put this one, right? So moving on, we got Earth Machine. As far as Earth Machine goes, it's another Floodgate heavy deck. I think it recently topped a regional somewhere in Mississippi or something, and we're gonna put this probably in the C tier, B tier. It's good in what it does. It has pretty lengthy turns, so they got a lot of stuff going for them and a lot of extending, and a decent amount of firepower and some recovery with the Machina stuff inside of it. But really good against our top contenders due to their use of floodgates, such as Goes In and all of that. Overall, pretty good. Fairly good contender in today's meta, but not quite at the top. Live Twins! A personal favorite of mine that I've been using for a while, but never quite got anywhere near the amount of playtime and attention that other decks have gotten. It's going to probably be under our D tier. Let's see, S, A, B, C tier. C tier. Probably can win 1 out of 20 locals, right? It's very susceptible, surprisingly, to board removal like Raigeki or Lightning Storm, because there's nothing they can really do if they so choose to tag out into the Link 4, or tag out of the Link 4 into the Link 2s. You might have some IP plays going if you drew some kind of extender, but the deck has relatively good draw power, but not quite enough. Invoked. This is a tough one. For me, Invoked definitely had its heyday in the beginning of 2020 with, Nadir and Dogmatica and stuff like that, but it's kind of fallen out of graces, at least recently. It's a little slower now, actually, with the way that the game has progressed, so we're going to put that safely. Definitely better than Live Twins, but definitely a solid C tier deck for sure. New tech coming out with Punk Therion. I'm relatively optimistic about this deck, but it's definitely somewhere in the B tier. I'm gonna put it right below Earth Machines for the time being, right? And again, with these tier lists, we're not trying to go for what our favorite deck is. We're just trying to look, relatively speaking, at results. So don't get offended if your favorite deck isn't here, right? Our tier lists this isn't the Better Business Bureau, okay? So if your deck just isn't doing what it wants to do, please don't take it personally. We're just trying to look at what is winning. And I know a lot of people are probably going to complain about what the best deck is, and that's understandable. But again, this is kind of the flow, the rhythm that Konami's going with. So we're just going to have to bear with that for a while. DDD, this is definitely Saturday night party with the boys. Gonna go get some steak tips at IHOP later. It's like Pen Magicians, but significantly worse because they're not as dependent on their pendulum summons so much as they are trying to get their initial fusion summons off, etc. The contracts can be a burden in time depending on your what you're choosing to go for. It's a good end board, but it's kind of like a glass cannon, right? Very strong reward, but kind of a little fragile in their setup. So that's kind of gonna be where that's at. Dragon Link. This is a little tough. We know that it's consistent all the way around, and it's been around for several formats. I'm gonna put this above the win 1 out of 20 locals. I'm gonna put it in the solid B tier, and it's probably gonna. A lot of the decks that we went over are gonna be in this category in general, which could be an indication of Konami doing a pretty good job and formatting things. It's gonna be a solid B tier deck for me. PK. So we know PK obviously took a hit because of the lack of Verte, but they're still capable of Scythe Walking, and they still have a good amount of recovery. But all in all, you know, I'm gonna also put this in the B tier, but below Dragon Link, right? I think Punk and Earth Machine have a solid, relatively good case to be above Dragon Link at this point. I think Therions are going to really push a new agenda with the meta. They do a lot of recycling. You know, King Therion attaches a machine. They all attach based on what their type is, and they all gain different effects. So I think a lot of decks are going to benefit in kind of like a toolboxy sort of way with Therion. Exo Sister. I'd feel really good about this deck if it was a Saturday night and I'm playing really casual. Right, I know that this deck's making waves in Japan. I know it's going to have some new support coming soon, but until that unfolds with the Dimension Force support and all that, it's going to either going to win 1 out of 20 locals, or it's going to just go out to IHOP later. I'm going to put it in win 1 out of 20 locals. I think that's a good frame of reference for that for the time being. It's still an Xyz deck, and we haven't really seen a lot of action with Xyz. Earlier in the fall of 2021, into the winter, when Burst dropped, and we saw the release of Synchro Storm, Zeus was prevalent, Dryden, up until it got banned again. It's funny, we kind of saw a wave of Xyz decks, doing their thing, but up until then, it's been more fusion-focused and more synchro-focused, but we're going to get into that. Fluunderies. Definitely a good contender. Let me check the notes. Yeah, this is definitely going to be more in the A tier category with what we decided. It can definitely catch even the best decks off guard if they go first, so that's really important. Solid search. It does a lot of searching, so it might be a little susceptible to Droll. Susceptible to Lancia because they do banish, but high reward if you get their full end board out. So that's where that's going to be. Classic favorite, we got Cyber Dragons. This is definitely going to see some sneaks on a locals level. Good OTK potential with a little bit of support from Therions, but still not quite breaking the mold of what we want to see in like a B tier deck. So that's definitely going to go in the C tier, right there. Again, with the release of Dynamite coming to 2, I guess this was worth mention. But we're definitely going to put True Draco still under the steak tips and tilapia category right here. Not exactly what you want to see. Definitely the worst out of all the decks currently, like in that category. I don't think one Dynamite is truly enough to reckon the fact that they only have one diagram. There's no masterpiece. And, their continuous spells and traps are good. And the amount of stuff and searching that they do in response to your effects are good. But you're kind of out of luck with only one card of Demise either. So if you're a fan of True Draco, and if you really want to push it and you can really prove us wrong, by all means, go for it. Drytron, definitely in the solid B tier category. I think that's where a lot of these decks are going to rest. If I had to go for all the B tier decks on this list, it might do it. With Ben 10 to 2, it might be a little bit better than PK. So I think that's a solid assessment. You're going to want to run the Megalith build, so you're going to recycle Ben 10 more that way, and you're obviously not going to have access to Eva, so you probably won't even run Beatrice at this point unless you're trying to do some really funky Scythe Lock stuff there. Which you could dump Scythe and then make Barone and tag out at the cost of your negate if you so want to, but that's all hearsay at this point in time, right? Here we go. Current best in format for sure is going to be Despia. It's a very straightforward deck. It's not exactly a combo deck. It's more of like a mid-range kind of deal. We talked about that in our previous video. It has its choking points like any other good deck, but the firepower that it can pull off, if, you know, one false move and they're just going to fully extend on you, right? Branded Fusion resolves. You set up for Branded in red. You don't really have the answer to that, and you'll be out of a game. And this deck has native super polymerization support. So all in all, definitely one of the best decks in the format. Following that, also in the best of format, is definitely going to be Elblick. They took no hits. Skill Drain still at 3. Obviously, Sanguine is still at 3. So the deck still is going to have all the firepower. It's still going to be able to beat you down and run all the floodgates that you need. Fairly decent matchup against Despia. And Red Reboot's still at 1. So what more can you say about that? Based definitely took some heavy losses. I'm very tempted to put it in the Steak Tips category, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Will always have this deep, interesting relationship with, you know, good stuff combo decks. So we might see a variant of this in the future. At this point, the deck is kind of really just Bass, because you're really not having access to the Enforcer part of it or the Dragon part of it without more, you know, with Red Rose Dragon to 1. But, you know, overall not the worst deck, but has some potential, but it's still kind of going on a Saturday night locals binge with the boys, you know what I'm saying? Sword Soul, this was probably our exclusive take out of the tier list that we saw, but Sword Soul still has a strong matchup and is definitely the 3rd best deck in the format currently. The hit to Auroradon really means nothing. The return to pot of Desires to 2 means everything. So do expect to see this deck continue to make waves as they still, you know, in their own way push Burst of Destiny product. Phoenix Enforcer may be out of the picture for a while, but Sword Soul will definitely be right there. Along with Florendariz, because they were also featured in Burst of Destiny. So there is that. Tri-Brigade definitely fell from graces without the use of Verte. So that's not going to be... that's just definitely going to be in the good tier. I think if I had to decide, Tri-Brigade needed Verte more than PK did in this case. I could be wrong about that, but as far as our gut feeling goes, it's going to be a little bit below PK. Several of us almost decided to put it in the win 1 out of 20 locals category, but that might be a little too harsh for Tri-Brigade. And last but not least on our list, we got Dinos. Where is this going to go? It's a tough call. Obviously, Misk still is at 1, despite community demand. It's definitely still has potential to catch you off guard. It's definitely a matter of whether it's better or worse than Tritron at this point. And I'm going to put it a little bit below Drytron because we still haven't seen the full fanned out capabilities just yet of that. So if you want to put a placeholder for pendulums, just put it, I don't know, put it somewhere right after Live Twins. So right here. So if you want to put Pendulum Magicians right there, then that's probably the best shot that you have. So, without further ado, this has been our assessment of the tier list as the format is still unfolding. But please be sure to subscribe and follow for more relatively new content that we're going to be pushing out very soon. So thank you guys.